so far as well, believe it or not. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Finally, I'm back. I am not 100%, but we're getting there. So tonight, then, we've got Mike Covell from Hull, which is, well, from me, it's about a half an hour drive, I think. From Dan, he's still in the middle of nowhere. Dan's in the sticks. But yeah, we've got Mike Covell tonight on with us, guys. He is from Hull. He's, how can I put it? He's like a big paranormal researcher. He's involved with a team that, believe it or not, I didn't even know existed. Kept that one quiet.
Yeah, very.
Yeah, best way to be nowadays, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we fly under the radar.
Best way to be, mate. Totally. Keep it low. Solid everyone else. So, guys, this is, believe it or not, my first interview out of 73 straight with Dan. So, Mike is number one. I hope I can get through these. So, Mike, welcome anyway, mate. Hey, Bobby,
Thanks,
welcome. No worries, mate. Glad to have you, actually, because I think you're the only one we've got that's local to us, apart from Emily Waterson, who's up Cambridge and RAF Upward way. But other than that, we haven't got any locals on. It's really weird. Oh, God, here we go. I've got my French friends coming on as well. Hi, guys. So, Dan, I'm going to let you ask some questions because you're very quiet in this. So, go for it. Whatever you want to ask it. No?
What's your favourite place you've ever investigated?
Royal Station Hotel in Hull.
Where's that?
So it's right on Ferrens Way. Right, if you come into Hull on the train, the hotel backs onto the railway station. As you get off the train and go through the barriers, you're at the back of the hotel. And it's one of them places that doesn't bill itself as haunted. It doesn't have the, we're the most haunted place, come and investigate us type thing. It's just a hotel. It's a Victorian hotel, goes right back to the 1850s. Always active, always have a great night in there. Throughout the years, I've took hundreds of people through the doors. And I like places like that. I prefer places like that to all the places that say we are the most haunted, you will experience stuff. Because 9 out of 10 times when I go to them places, I don't experience anything and it ends up being disappointing.
Do you find when you go to, I know you said you do private locations, but you've also said you've done paid as well. Do you not find when you go to a paid location, it's just complete hype bullshit? But then when you go to, like the hotel, for example, the energy in a place like that, it's just, because we actually did, there's, the paintballing place in Hull. We actually did an investigation in there. We were going to sign up, get a contract and do in there with them. But they allowed us to go in there and do a few things. Oh, man, what a place. The energy was phenomenal. It's amazing how all these little places are hidden away and you don't know about them. But do you find you get more activity in places that are undiscovered than what you get in a paid event, basically?
Oh yeah, definitely. A lot of the big venues in Hull, where they're selling tickets and stuff like that for big events, I've been there. I've done that. Nothing to write home about, and it's the smaller ones that they don't broadcast it. I get access because of what I do as an historian. I get access to all the lovely old Victorian buildings and warehouses and stuff like that. All the old pubs, all the old clubs and theatres and restaurants. And so I'm quite blessed that I get into buildings that very few people have been in. And when we go in as a group, we go in to investigate. We don't go in to bring guests. We don't go in to do a live stream. We go in to set our equipment up and try and capture evidence. And it's wonderful because the team I work with are fantastic. We're like a little family. Although they keep calling me dad because I'm quite old compared to them. But it's great to show the young ones around and we have a good laugh and we look after it. And there's a lot of banter. We take the mick out of each other, to keep it light-hearted. And so far we've been in some wonderful locations. Just recently, actually, the Lord Mayor of Headon messaged and asked if I would host an event for the Lord Mayor in Headon, and we got to investigate Headon Town Hall, which has never been done before, and they don't open it up to groups or anything like that. And it was amazing. We had a lot of activity. Pretty much every device went off that night. One of the guests saw an apparition on the stairs of a woman, and then later on, someone else saw the apparition on the stairs of a woman, which was really interesting. And then we had other things. I worked with a guy called Matt, who was a complete skeptic, didn't believe in any of this stuff, and he sort of turned around to me. No, I'm not Scott.
He's a bugger, isn't he?
He is, yeah, he is. He turned around to me and he said, something's pulling my trouser leg. And I said to him, if it don't exist, what can it be? And then he was trying to rationalise it. Maybe it's a draft. I said, there's no drafts around you. You can feel, there's no drafts around you. We're in a really old, very tightly. They have gold and silverware in there, so it's locked down pretty tight. Sounds like there's no drafts getting in. You can feel, you could roll your sleeves up and walk around you. I'm not feeling any drafts. What can it be? And he was absolutely baffled by it. And it was really interesting to see his reaction. But it was a great night, and we raised £300 for mental health charities, which was really nice.
See, that's another thing that's not brought up enough, I think, within our field, is the mental health. A lot of people that do this actually do suffer with mental health, and it does help. As weird as it sounds, it does help. Yeah. It's helped me a lot. Really has helped me a lot. I've worked with Scott, obviously. We did the vaults, me and Dan did the vaults with Scott. Yeah, we won't talk about that, but guys, mate, it was a nightmare. So you said you were a historian,
yeah.
Can you tell us whether Hull is really haunted? I know there was one of the, what they call them, one of the blimps, Dan, the German blimps. What's it called?
Zeppelin.
That's the one. See, that's why we have an historian. The Zeppelin came down by the Hull Bridge. We know that's happened. Obviously, we know about the bridge. We won't mention it on here in case people are watching, fans are watching. We don't want to mention that. Obviously, there's been a few other issues around that area as well. But good old Scott. No, there wasn't a Highland cow. I don't know. There might have been coming out of clubs. But yeah, the area itself, for me, because you've got, is it Hessel? The actual park, Hessel Park. Have you actually investigated there? As weird as it sounds.
Yeah,
I have as well. It's strange.
So I'll answer your question in two parts. In terms of the history of Hull, we had the plague, we had the cholera, we had the Black Death, we've had witch trials here. We were bombed in World War I during the Zeppelin raids. We were bombed in World War II during the bombings. The last manned enemy air raid on Great Britain took place on Hull, just at the top of my street. It's the anniversary in 2 weeks' time. We're going to go and commemorate that. We were the worst bombed city outside of London in World War II, but because there was a D notice, all the information was classified until 70 years after the war. So it's not really that well known. So there's lots of death, there's lots of tragedy. And then Hull was basically a swamp that had a raised part where the monks lived. So before the city was built, it was an ancient religious settlement for various monks. We had the White Friars, we had the Black Friars, and they hated each other. They used to fight with each other and all sorts. Then in later years, we had the Protestants and Catholics in Hull. They fought against each other until William III became king. So we've had loads and loads of tragedy in the city. And then in terms of Hessel, so it's a funny story, this. That is actually an old chalk quarry. And that's where they used to get the chalk to make the whiting, and the whiting was what they put on the outside of buildings to make the buildings look clean and things like that. And there's loads of stories connected with it. But some years ago, we had a very dodgy paranormal person who was taking people on tours around there. And he was telling them that there was, do you know what? You'll have seen the Black Mill, won't you?
Yeah.
Near the Black Mill, there's these big stone discs, which are used for crushing the whiting in the mill. He told people that these were used for witchcraft. And these were gathering places for witches. So then you have all these people that start believing that, and they start spreading the stories. So then people come to me and say, "Is it true?" Well, no. Like, why would witches be in a chalk quarry unless
Do
they're
you know what I
getting
thought it
charged?
was for? I'll be honest. I thought it was for grain. I thought it was a grain mill. I'll be
Yeah,
honest.
no, big waiting mill. The family, the Herefield family that owned that mill, were actually linked to a Hull-born Jack the Ripper suspect. One of them was the solicitor that looked after him, a guy called Robert Donson Stevenson.
Yeah.
And then there was also linked to a murder of Mary Jane Langley. One of the Mary Jane Langley's boyfriend actually worked at the mill and was at the mill the day she was murdered, because the police went to see him at the mill and that was his alibi. So it's quite a notorious little area, and you'll know yourself that the bridge is quite, God bless him, it's a suicide hotspot, and so there's a lot. So there is quite a lot of history in that area. On the actual Humber forefront itself, people have seen monks walking along, and if you go up to beyond Hessel, if you go the other way away from Hull, towards Ferriby and Welton and places like that, there was a lot of religious. Yeah. If you go towards Goole, if you go in the other direction away from Hull, there was lots of religious settlements up that way. So we know there was a lot of monks in the area, but that seems to be quite a common sighting. And then there's also been a number of murders associated with the Humber as well. So that the entire stretch, it is quite a lot of darkness linked to that waterway. So you can see why there's a lot of activity. I did Humber Bridge car park and the country park late one night. I did it with my friend and my son. We went in the back way, and the gate was closed, and we had to climb over the gate, and we walked round, and it was quite dark and atmospheric and quite drafty and quite windy. And we did the full, we walked around the park itself at night, which is quite eerie. And then we came out, went up over the bridge, and then came back along the bridge. And it was only when we was coming back down to the car park, I felt this gust of wind up the side of my leg. And I realised when I jumped over the fence, I'd ripped my trousers from my ankle all the way up to my ass. So there was just a big hole in my trousers. I'd not realised all night. And we've been walking around this forest all night, and I'd not realised that's why it was so bloody drafty. But yeah, it's a lovely place. I often go and sit in there on a night with my team, go sit in the darkness and just watch. It's a real nice place to go looking for sky watching and stuff like that, because there's very little light pollution out that way.
Do you know where the steps are?
Yeah.
So you got where you were on about a minute ago with the car park. Have you ever found anything off them steps?
So some years ago, there were stories of a little boy being seen on the steps, and according to local legend, he was on his bike, and he didn't realise how steep the steps were, and he went down the steps, and he died in a tragic accident. This story's been doing the rounds for years, and I've mentioned it in a couple of my books, but I've never found an historical newspaper article talking about it. It's just one of those kind of my auntie's uncle, sister's mother's brother said, this is what happened. I've never found any historical evidence. But again, there's stories in there just locally, not far from that park. There was a guy called Leslie Hutchinson who was murdered, and he had where the train station is in Hessel. Yeah. So between the train station and the country park, he had dog kennels, and he was riding to work one night, and someone had put a rope across the little pathway, and he came off the bike, and two men were waiting for him, and they came out and beat him to death. And it transpired that his wife was behind it. She'd paid for these guys to kill him. So that was in that immediate area. And then also as well, there was just at the back, at the other side of the railway, there was a big house called Wensley Lodge, and it was set on fire in the 1970s, and it was linked to the arsonist Bruce Lee, Hull's serial killer. And it was later, the later said, "Oh no, we don't think he did it. We think it was just a tragic accident." That's since gone, and new houses have been built on the site, and I had the privilege of visiting some of those houses. And on the spirit box, the only word it came out with on 5 different occasions was fire. It just kept saying fire, fire, and it was so weird. And one of the people who lives in the house, she'd put a tape recorder down overnight and left it while she was sleeping. And it's really hilarious because she played it back. You can hear her snoring and grunting, but every now and then you can hear a man, and he's sort of trying to clear his, he could, it's really weird. So that they're quite modern houses built on this old site. So like we were talking before about the ground, it's quite interesting that it's still there.
Being a historian, obviously, we've done part Hull myself. Going where you've got KCOM, if you follow the coast up onto the point, I can't remember what the point's called.
That's Stern Point.
Where?
Stern Point. That's Stern Point. That one.
That's why I got down in Spurn Point.
Oh yes, Ben. Yep.
All the way up that road alone, there's 9 bunkers alone that I've seen. And if you go to Spurn Point itself, it is the old Navy part, isn't it?
Yeah. There was military all around there, all the way around Easington, Killensey, and then if you come the other way around the Humber at Paul, we have Fort Paul, and then further along there we had Sunk Island, which was a battery. We had Stony Creek, which was also a gun battery. So there's loads of defences around there, and of course with all of them, there's stories of ghosts and activity and stuff like that. So they are pretty cool places to explore.
Well, we've lost Fort Paul, haven't we, unfortunately?
We have, yeah, sadly. That many years ago, I used to do a lot of work with Yorkshire Ghost Hunts, and they booked it every year for February. And if you can imagine how cold the Humber is in February, I would go out there in the middle of the night at sort of, just gone midnight. It'd be snowing, absolutely freezing. You'd have 10 pairs of socks on, just trying to keep your feet warm. And then Mark Penn, that used to run Yorkshire Ghost Hunts back in the day, he had this amazing idea that when his guests come, they would get fed. So he would put on a big spread of, sandwiches and buns and cakes and crisps, but they always made a chili. So 2 o'clock in the morning when it's freezing cold and snowing, Mark would come over with a big bowl of chili for you with big pile of grated cheese on top. Get that down your mic. Oh, and it was magnificent. It was lovely. But yeah, had a lot of active nights in Fort Paul. On one occasion, did you ever visit when it was open?
No, I really got night. I moved up here, I think it was 6 months before they started putting petitions to try and save it. But unfortunately, I was gutted because they have a lot of the 2 aircrafts, didn't they? I can't think what they're called.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to get in there because apparently that in one of those there was a lot of activity in one of those, and I wanted to get into that because
you don't find
many aircraft that's actively haunted, if you know what I mean. Doesn't matter where you go, you don't find it. And I want to do a ship. I haven't done a ship yet. I haven't done a plane, and I haven't done a lighthouse. Everything else I've never enough done. But they are the 3 I want to do. But I did want to do it. I've heard so much. But so much about Fort Paul. It's unreal. I want to do, as weird as it sounds, now I grew up on this camp, I don't know if you ever heard of it, RAF Witten, in between Huntingdon and St Ives. I grew up there. My father actually came out of the RAF 6 weeks after Station Commander killed himself. Obviously, I don't know if you know about the story. If I've got it right, I think it's at 88. He did a 1-engine takeoff in an RAF Canberra with 6 OCs and 7 NCOs, and it flipped as it took off on a 1-engine, and it blew up basically on the airfield. But I wanted to do that. I know it's a civilian camp now as well.
Yeah.
So I'd like to do that because obviously I've got things there, and obviously I've done Nocton Hall. I don't know if you've done Nocton Hall. We ran events there, me and Dan. Nocton Hall is amazing. I've got pictures of Nocton Hall. I've got 7 different pictures of Nocton Hall. I was born there. It's a unique location. Never, like you were saying earlier before we went on, I would never take somebody's word, face value, for a location like this. I mean, I can show you pictures, but what does a picture mean when you could experience something completely different? The hospital was run by Mary, really nice lady, and her husband Sean. They have Into the Dark paranormal run events there at the moment. But it is a place to go. Lost my then. Bloody kids playing on the computer. Bloody things. So the hospital was a fascinating place to do. I've done the hall itself. Obviously, like I said, I've done part Hessel. We didn't even know that Hull was active. It's like they've only just opened up Aniston's funeral home, haven't they, again, to start investigating. People have told me so much about that, and then I've had people go, don't bother. Have you done it?
I ran tours there in 2014 for a year.
Go on.
I filmed Most Haunted there. I
Yep.
worked on the Most Haunted experience there. And then there was an issue with some of my research, and I've not been back.
Personal question. Yes or no? Is it worth it?
If you're going in as a guest, yes.
Yep.
If you're paying, no.
That's good enough for me then. In other words, the locations. See, guys, the problem we've got when we do things like this, and as you know, Mike's very close to us where we live, so we have done a lot of locations between the three of us, and we know a lot. And there is locations I'd like to mention in Hull, but unfortunately I can't because of legal issues. What I can tell you is that some of the locations in Hull, Mike will tell you he's, as a historian, knows himself, and he's actually debunked these places aren't what they are made out to be. So it's hard. You can't name them, obviously for legal reasons. But unfortunately, we have a lot of people who think they can go into a place and go, yeah, that's haunted. And it happens everywhere, like you said. Hull for us, we didn't even know was haunted. I'd read up history, I read up about murders and everything else. But buildings itself, we've been struggling. Now, there was one building I wanted to talk to you about, and that was the theatre.
Was Hull New Theatre. Yeah. So going way back now, to maybe sort of 15, 16 years ago, I used to go in there quite a lot. The guy who used to run it, a guy called Stuart, he passed away, and when he passed away, that was it. They stopped doing events then, and he was like the night watchman, and he was such a lovely man, and so he knew all the theatre. I got scratched in there on my neck. We witnessed a chair move on its own in there. We were in the basement where there's a story that someone hung themselves, and we said, if there's anyone here, give us a sign. And it sounded like bones breaking.
Oh.
And it was just chilling. There was, you know yourself, if you're all accounted for, who else can it be? And we searched that building from top to bottom. But there was surreal moments as well. We did an evening in there where we were told we were not allowed to take pictures on the stage, which was really unusual. And when we went onto the stage, we found out why. They had all the costume characters from various CBeebies television shows. And we didn't want to spoil the magic for the children. So it was really interesting. Middle of the night, it's pitch black, and there's these characters from, television sort of stood there. But yeah, it's a fantastic building. There's a lot of history in it. We've had some wonderful nights in there. Well worth visiting.
Now, isn't it?
What's that, sorry?
It's completely boarded up now, isn't it?
Hull New Theatre, it's open now.
So which is the one that's boarded up? The other theatre or cinema?
Are you thinking of Carlton on Angleby Road?
That'd be the one. Have you done that?
Yeah, Carlton's closed up now. That was for many years it was opened as a cinema and a theatre. Later it became a bingo place, but a few years ago a young lad was murdered on the doorstep outside, and it closed down not long afterwards, and it hasn't reopened since. But there's a couple like that. Closer to Hull city centre, you've got Tower, which was also another theatre / cinema, which was turned into a nightclub. Again, they opened that up for a short while for paranormal nights. We had some wonderful evenings in there. We were on the dance floor, and we had people running on the balcony. Then we sent people up to sit on the balcony, and I said to them, ask out, and they said, if you're here, come towards us. And you could hear footsteps walking across the balcony. And my mate was sat up there, and he's a skeptic, and he said to me, I don't like this. He went, I can't understand it, I can't explain it. But it's closed now, it's all closed up, which is such a shame.
This is why we're doing this petition with the council and everything else. We're losing locations. you know yourself, Mike, we are getting hit so hard up here at the moment. It's ridiculous. We've lost Denby, we've lost St John's, we've lost. Obviously, they built the estate over the one in Caister. You've got oh bloody hell, there's another one that's just been completely boarded up. We lost Manby to fire. I think it was 7 years ago, 8 years ago. That massive fire at Manby. Skidbrook's now under watch. The church. You know, it's people think that we've done this to hurt people in our field. It's not, guys. Without locations, you're not an investigator. It's that simple. For me, and I know Mike as well being an historian, we're losing our heritage as British people. And it's really sad because without our history, we're nobodies. That's what it comes down to. Without our history, we are no one. And this is why we did this petition. Obviously, you see that we can talk to Mike about locations we've done. I mean, you ever tried Stalingrad artillery?
I've not. My friend has. We talked about it this year. We actually had a day planned out to go over to Lincoln, and it was when we had that really severe weather warning.
Yeah.
Now I'm quite hardcore. I was just like, let's go, but my mate was like, no, I don't want to risk it. So we called the day off the day before. He stayed at home. I know it got a little bit grey. There was a bit of drizzle. I mean, the ice cream man still came down here. So I messaged him and I kept checking up on him. You know, you all right? Are you sure you're okay? Have you got enough bread and milk and all that kind of stuff? Just taking the mick out of him. You know, he's a drama queen. But yeah, it's so funny. We did manage a day out very briefly in Lincolnshire. I posted some pictures up of the church and stuff like that we went to, which was really nice. But it wasn't the big day we had planned. So I was a bit gutted that we had to cancel it because he's been on several occasions and he was like, you need to go and check it out because it's awesome. There's a similar one at our side, which is at Sunk Island, and it's a gun battery that dates back to World War One. And it actually fired when the Zeppelins was flying over. It actually fired on the Zeppelins when they were flying over in 1914. And we went to investigate that. And we did it during the day. We went down during the day. Lovely site. There was maybe about 20 of us, all from local historians, metal detectorists, paranormal investigators, a couple of guys that were interested in the bunker aspect, all these different people coming together. And we had such a lovely day. And while we were there, we were sort of looking into the history of it. And we realised we were there on the anniversary of the day when the guns were firing on the Zeppelins. And it was just eerie, you know, just to be stood there and like, wow, this is like, you know, a century ago. These guns would have been going crazy. Yeah, it's an amazing sight.
There's 4 batteries at Stalingrad, and they are. We've done it several times, haven't we, Dan? From what I've been told, the field is an ancient burial ground.
Wow.
We've had lots on Spirit Box, usually German fighters, German pilots coming through. We've had a young family and a child come through who were executed there as prisoners of war. Obviously, you've got the main HQ there, bunker. You go in, you don't feel anything. It's just dark, very dark. But if you go at night, wow! Because we go in the day first, because obviously there's a problem with that place is there's lots of big bricks that have come down. And there's massive holes in the ground, so you don't know where you step in. But at night, that place comes to life, and you can see the site of fire. Now I'm ex-army, so I was actually going to look at these, but you can see the line sites of fire. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I bet.
But at night you can hear, because you've got no traffic or anything there. You've got 4 houses, and then behind the 4 houses is the actual site. You've got nothing around you. It's all fields.
Yeah,
and you've got fresh water running through it, and you've got the pylons running across the top. So you've already got your conductors to make it even stronger. But wow, some of the nights we've had there, I advise you go there. even as
Yeah,
even as a
definitely.
historian.
Yeah,
Even
definitely.
as a
It's one of them
historian.
places that, it does appeal to me. We have done a lot of bunkers over that way, Elsham Wold and places like that. A lot of the secret resistance bunkers that, Churchill had the secret resistance build in the countryside. We've done quite a few of them over that way. And then over towards Barton area, around that way, we've done quite a few around there. But yeah, I've never really been that. I know we went to, what's the place with the seals?
Oh, Donanook.
Yeah, we went to Donanook not that long ago.
For me, that's
Um,
not haunted. It's more of, because it's a firing range, everybody assumes it's haunted. It's not. People need to understand it's not.
We just went to see the seals.
I'll tell you what, they're phenomenal, aren't they? They
Yeah,
are
it
a
was just
sight.
amazing.
It's
So I know my mate was sort of saying is that there's a tank out there somewhere, but when it's all fully grown, all I could see was the reeds. I was like, I can't see anything, and he's like, it's out there somewhere. But it's just amazing to watch
they had a C-17 doing bombing raids over there. They get a lot of American C-17s up there doing raids. But other than that, for me, I didn't get nothing. The SEALs, on the other hand, amazing experience. I suggest you take kids if you want to take kids anywhere. See them in their actual environment. That's the place to go. But as for that, no. You ever done Skidbrook?
Yes, a couple of times actually. So yeah, it was quite interesting. What interested me about that place, if you look really carefully, all the pillars, there's etchings on all the pillars of various symbols. And we went one day and I said, I'm going to record as many as I can. And I took about 500 pictures. And I uploaded some onto Facebook, actually. They should be in my one of my albums somewhere. There was all these different symbols and stuff like that. And we brought them all back. I've got a friend who specialises in Mason's marks and things. And he had a look at them and see if they were made by Masons or if they were ritualistic and that kind of thing. But I really enjoyed it. I never got a weird, spooky vibe from it. I felt more at peace when I was there. I felt quite relaxed. But there was occasions where we went on quite a stormy day. And there were occasions where the wind blew through the church because there's no windows, is there? And there's no doors. And that was quite eerie because the wind just came barreling through and then it would die down again. And then 10 minutes later, the wind...
understand.
barreling through.
Did you see the mist?
No, because we went in the day.
Well, we went at night. I bet Dan was with me. You should have been with me. You know where you park?
Yeah.
Where the gate is? Behind that gate, there's the fields. The field on the right, pure mist in it, about 3 or 4 foot high. Nowhere else. Just that one field.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I never noticed that.
Absolutely, man. We've done a lot of night ones there. I did Halloween actually in 2019. I had 23,000 people live watching us do Halloween on there as a video. So I was like, that, all right. But the stuff I've seen and heard there, you're right, it is peaceful. But there is something, I can't say it's paranormal.
Yeah, well, over the years, I've heard people say that it was used in the 70s for this, that, and the other, and there was rituals going on and all this kind of stuff.
So you can see the rituals.
Yeah. So, and then I had a couple of my friends they were there one night, and they said this car came and sort of drove off, and then it came back and parts up and then drove off, and it was acting mysteriously. But I said to them, "How do you know it wasn't another team waiting for you to go?" So they could go in. Why does it have to be sinister? And I remember talking to one guy. He said he'd gone and he found earth that had recently been dug up and put back down again, which was quite weird.
There's one of those, what they call them, boxes. Daniel, help me. Big boxes for, where they go with the coordinates. Cash boxes.
Oh, geocache. Yeah.
Yeah, geocache boxes. They've got one of those under one of the graves.
Yeah.
You know where the 6 Navy guys are? You've got opposite from one grave. That's where the geocache is.
Yeah.
Trying to think what else they've got. I've seen a porno shoot there.
Same happened to me, in Skullcoats Lane Cemetery.
I couldn't believe it. 19-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Doing a porno show live during the day.
Man ended up in the Daily Mirror and all over the place. It was a big story.
I've seen. We watched one guy do a scrying session, and he turned into what looked like the best way to describe it was Gollum.
Really?
Yeah, if that was fine. And that was at the top end where the board is, where you step down. There's obviously the markings of the pentagram with where they've been doing all the rituals.
Yeah.
But it's funny, they've been doing it over one of the monks, because one of the monks is supposed to be buried there. But it's all collapsing now anyway. We've heard, like you said earlier about breaking bones, we've heard what sounded like a little girl fall out of the tree and break her arm. God, that's agonising, listening to that. We've heard horses' hooves, all sorts of. It's an amazing place. But now the locals are turning nasty. Dan knows, he lives up that way. The locals are fighting back.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them. I really don't blame them anymore. It's like Manby. The locals are fighting back on that one now and all.
Yeah.
You can't blame them. Like I say to people, we're losing so much. We do so much and we do so much. Let's go on anyway then. Best evidence ever caught.
Ooh.
And where?
I think on camera or what I've physically seen.
See, I can't say physically seen because I have, but I can't say it.
So I'll tell you one of the experiences I had at Royal Station Hotel. This was multiple eyewitnesses that saw this, and for me it was just amazing. We were sat in the if you go in Royal Station Hotel for the front doors, there's a big area where you can sit and have a cup of tea, and it's right next to the bar, and it's right next to the function rooms, and it's right near the restaurant. And we were there one night. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning. There was myself, there was the duty manager, there was the night watchman, there was a guy from reception. There was about 8 of us, big lads, all sat round having a cup of tea in the early hours of the morning. The hotel was dead. They were building St. Stephen's at the time, so the occupancy levels had dropped because it was so noisy with pile driving and digging and all that kind of stuff. So we were just sat having a cuppa, and this boy came round the corner from the restaurant, and he was stood with his hand in his sort of shirt. And I said to Ray, the duty manager, I said, "Is that a member of your staff?" And Ray looked over and he went, "No, he didn't work here." And he went, "Oi," at this boy. And this boy turned and ran. So we all got up together, big strapping lads, and we ran after him, and we went down the side of the restaurant. And there's a corridor that goes to the kitchens. And he ran straight past the corridor that goes into the kitchen and the corridor that goes into the function room to a concrete wall. And he went through the wall. Now, all 8 of us was in hot pursuit about 6 foot behind him, and we all just stopped dead. And for the rest of the night, them lads wouldn't leave each other's sides. At one point, I went to the toilet, and to go to the toilet, you have to go down this long corridor to go to the men's toilets. And I was walking, I could hear footsteps behind me. I turned around, all these lads was following me. And I said, "What are you doing?" And they said, "Well, you're going to the toilet, so we're all coming as well." And they were all stood in the urinals all next to each other because they were terrified of going in the cubicles. And these were big, strapping lads. So that was interesting. On a couple of occasions on camera, I've caught glasses moving and things like that. I've caught one of the things I like to do, I like the old school method. So I like to take things like compasses.
Yeah.
And I have a compass that has the face on it is it glows in the dark, but the thing that goes around your neck, that glows in the dark as well. So you can see it hanging down, and on a night I've seen that sort of on camera. I've sort of seen it move and then drop suddenly. On camera as well, we went to a property where a little girl had died in a fire, and the new family had moved into the house, and their daughter was reported seeing this little girl. And we went one night, and she had a rocking horse in the bedroom. So we set the camera up on the rocking horse, and the rocking horse was moving backwards and forwards. And I put my crucifix on the handle of the rocking horse, and on camera you can see it. And it was like someone was just doing that with it and grabbing it, and you could see it at a right angle. and it was really weird. And I actually said, if you want it, move it, and you can keep it. And it moved, so I left that behind. I put that on top of with the family's permission. I put that on top of one of the wardrobes and left that behind. So that was really interesting. And we was all sat watching that on the big screen while it was being recorded as well downstairs. So the room was completely locked off. There was no one in there that could, mess about with it and stuff like that. So that was really interesting. And then I suppose this place as well. When we moved in here, the kids were seeing stuff that my daughter said she'd seen a little old lady. My son said he'd seen a man with a bit of wood in his hand. And I went away to the archives and found loads of newspaper reports about the property. And it mentioned that on April 1st, 1945, Fred Watson, who was a fitter and a lodger, had killed Emily Eleanor Garbutt in the room that's just over my shoulder. And he put an axe through her head 6 times. He then dragged a body into this room and switched on the gas taps, and when that failed, he got a rusty knife and tried to cut his wrists. And he was eventually arrested. They sent him to the hospital on Beverly Road, and he escaped, and the police caught him. They bandaged his wrists up. They sent him to the police court, found him guilty but insane. They sent him to Delapo, which was the asylum, and when he got there, he killed himself. So I had a murder and a suicide linked to the property, and then my wife said, "Where's husband? Why is she living on her own?" So I went further back in the archives, and in 1929, Mr. Garbutt left the property through that door just over my shoulder and was never seen alive again. They pulled his body from the Humber near Grimsby, and it looked like he'd been beaten up and thrown in the Humber. So we think Fred Watson had killed him to be with her, and after 18 years, he'd snapped and put an axe through her head. And in here, we've had the clock moving around on its own. We've had lights switching on and off by themselves. We did some filming in here recently, and the film crew was in this room. And for 2 hours, we talked about writing and the fact that I'd written 100 books. And the minute he mentioned Mrs. Garbutt, a folder flew off the wall and landed at his feet. And I was just real chill about it. And he was like, "Oh my God, what the hell is going on?" And then sometimes we get the smell of lavender coming in, which is, I think it's quite nice. It's quite a nice feeling. And then in the past few weeks, I don't know if I've got any to hand. Don't think I've got. In this room, I got up in the morning because I do the ghost walks on a night. I come home, I get something to eat, and I go to bed. If the kids are away for the weekend, the house is empty. So I come through this room to go to my kitchen, which is just over the other side. So I know the room's empty. And I come down in the morning. The first morning I came down, there was a branch. And it was about so big. And then the following week I came down and there was a branch in the middle of the floor, and it was 4 foot long. I took a picture of it and posted it on Facebook. I have a cat who lives indoors. He never goes outside. We don't have a cat flap. Don't know where these things are coming from. But why is it just appearing in the middle? Yeah, just I think it's over in the corner of the room.
Branch, that is.
It's, I think, 1 second.
That's quite a big branch.
So,
Jesus.
So this is how big it is, and it just goes on and on and on and on.
That's see, whatever's moved that or picked that or brought that in, that has got to have a lot of energy.
So yeah, so I'm baffled, but I keep all this stuff. Like, when I go on investigations and stuff like that, if stuff gets thrown at me, I'll keep it. So
Trigger objects.
Yeah, I've got a little corner full of stuff.
I have been there.
Yeah.
I've got my own Buick box as well. So they say. But we picked up a little boy's link to that. But in here, I've got the old lady, 6 kids, a dog, and it's brilliant. I absolutely love it. The things that happen within here, if you've got your energy is going to be a lot different to mine because of what's happened there. Mine's really chilled. If you bring something in, they will pipe up. But lately, they just run around turning the Xboxes on because you can do that. As you saw with the laptop, the screen moved. Obviously, I've got a laptop beside me. The screen moved on that when you disappeared all of a sudden. I get all of that. I think it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. For me, I have to ask you this. With the old lady and the fact that you have the killer there, which you have, do you ever get or experience any of her flashbacks or anything like that? Or do you know, does the time change where it stops still and all of a sudden you're there, sort of thing, like we're actually seeing it for yourself or experiencing what she goes through? Because surely she would be putting across memories.
Yeah, no, nothing like that. We had the Diocese of York came down. They sent their local exorcist to come and do a blessing. And I became really good friends with this guy. And he came and he said, "Don't tell me anything about your house." And he walked to the bottom of the stairs and stood there for 10 minutes. And then he said, "There's a man at the top of the stairs with an axe and he wants to kill you and your family." So I said, "Well, he can go." He said, "There's a little old lady and she loves it here. She's got so many happy memories and she likes being here. She's protective." So I said, "She can stay." So there's nothing ever really like bad happens here. It's more peaceful and every year on April 1st we light a candle for her. And the kids talk about her like she's a real person. So she's remembered. And it was almost like fate had picked me to come to this property. It was like fate had said, right, this is a story that needs telling. You're the guy to do it. And I came in and it's just an amazing house.
You do a lot of private investigations as well. Now, I've done private investigations. Dan's been with me when we've done them. Have you experienced, we won't say demonic because it's just a crap word, have you experienced a dark entity, or use of the word?
No. Do you know, the places where I go, if they tend to be either nice spirits or not nice. I don't think I've ever dealt with like a demon or anything like that. I think if we're good in life, we'll be good in death. And if we're shit in life, we'll be shit in death. And I think some of the places where I've been, there have been quite kind of overpowering, not very nice people. I've been to locations that are linked to murderers and the victims of murders and things like that. And the families have called me in and said, "Can you come?" And I've gone and I'm not a psychic, but when you walk in a room and you feel that it's not very nice, you get the hairs on the back of your neck type thing, and you just know. I've been to a few locations. Yeah, I've been to a few locations where I walk in and I feel quite nice. I feel quite relaxed, and I can sit and chill. But then I go to some locations, and I think, "What the hell?" I remember going to one. Yeah, I remember going to one, and it was an old manor house that was a farm in the Victorian period, and a family had moved in, and their teenage daughter had got involved with all sorts of very dark stuff, and she killed herself. And they called us up and said, "Would you like to come to the house because we're having stuff happen in our bedroom?" And I remember going into the house, and my friend said, "Right, before we go in, we're going to do a prayer of protection."
Yeah.
And I was sort of like, right, just playing devil's advocate here. If something gets thrown at me, what if I do the prayer of protection? How will that protect me?
Have this conversation every time.
Yeah, so it was like, don't do it then. So I was like, fair enough. So I walked through the door and a frying pan flew across the room and missed my head by about an inch. And I remember running back outside, dragging him outside and saying, "Does it work if you say it for me?" And it was just so funny. The family were just stood there like just in shock at what had happened, and that didn't feel very nice in there. It felt, it was almost like someone was saying, "Get out. We don't want you here."
Do you feel like that spirit, we're talking about the girl here, do you think she was disgruntled and that's why she became... See, you can't use the word poltergeist until you've witnessed it.
Yeah.
Would you say she was a disgruntled spirit and she didn't want you there, maybe because what she did, she didn't want to go over? Because obviously when you do house investigation, do you do... do you help them move on to the next stage? Hi, Stephen, by the way. Because, we've done, like I said, we've done a lot of investigations. We've helped people move on. But at the same time, I've experienced the darker side of things when it comes to these places. And obviously, when you've got multiple stuff going on, it can be quite horrific. Mickey Fanuca, I interviewed in June, I worked with, we went to a house in Wales 3 o'clock in the morning. He's sleeping on the sofa, I'm on the floor. He gets thrown off the sofa, gets back on it, bolts upright, looks at me and goes, "What?" And then falls asleep. And I'm like, that did not just happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I've
bloody
seen stuff.
well did.
Yeah. I remember going to a property where stuff was happening. It was quite dark, and I remember walking into the living room where the family had said their son was possessed, and I wasn't. I just thought maybe this was just like this guy messing about. He was a grown man. It wasn't like a kid. And I remember walking in the room, and it didn't look like a person. It looked like something really angry, and he sort of said to us, "Get out." And I remember we had my mate was with me who does he's the medium, he does all the blessings and stuff like that. We had 2 guys with us because the family said, "We need these 2 guys. If he kicks off, these guys are going to hold him down." And his wife was in the corner and she was crying. She was like, "That is not my husband." And she was in bits and we performed a blessing and we had a Bible, and it was really weird. The guy I worked with called John, he said to this kid, "What can you see?" And this kid was looking up into the corner of the room, and he said, "There's a very dark black cloud and it's circling, and inside I can see this woman, and she's telling me to come and follow her." And and John was like, "That's right." He said, "Now you've got to tell her you don't want to go, you want to stay here with your family." So he said, "I can't come with you," and he was crying, and his body was shaking. And then John said, "Where is she?" And he went, "She's gone." And he said, "What does the circle look like now?" And he said, "It's white." And he said, "Right, I want you to close that circle now." And he closed the circle. And just like that, his body went from being this real rigid guy that looked like he was about to kill me and rip my throat out. And his body just went.
Like
and I went, "Yeah." And I went, "Are you all right?" And he looked at me and he went, "Yeah, I'm fine." And I was like, "What the hell?" And he had insomnia because he couldn't go to sleep because every time he went to sleep, he saw this woman.
Yeah.
And I said to him, he was laid on the sofa, and I said, "We'll leave you there and we'll go." And we went, and about 8 hours later, he messaged me and went, "I've just woke up." And he's doing fine now. I see him at the gym all the time. He's doing really, really well. Completely different kid. And that was weird because I couldn't explain that. But it's really funny because John was going, "Look into the corner," and I'm looking around like, what they're looking at? And these guys are describing the same thing. And I'm like, what? Where the hell are they looking? But yeah, that was a weird case.
I do that a lot, actually. But now that I'm an empath, so I see shadows and I feel people's pain. Not one of the best gifts ever. People think these are gifts. They're not gifts. They're definitely not gifts. They're a nightmare, especially if you can see what you can see. I've got them in. I can tap in. So I know the kids are around. But it's not a blessing, guys. If you think being a medium or being an empath is a gift, it's not. It's a curse. You don't realise what you see. You go to your doctor and try and explain it. Like I've had to lately, obviously with my brain injury and my seizures. I've gone to the doctor. Look, I'm seeing shadows. Is this normal? And he knows that I work within the paranormal field. And he's actually said to me, brilliant bloke, actually, I'll never knock him for this. He turned around to me and said, "It's possible that with your injury, being it was horrific, that you're now able to see things that you don't, like a normal person wouldn't see." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"You're a doctor. 9 times out of 10, you told me I'm freaking crazy and knocked me up."
Yeah.
He was brilliant about it. He said, "That's what I think it is." And I'm like, how do you accept that?
Yeah.
It's not easy at all. I know Dan's reading me right now as well, by the way. Dan's practicing his online medium things. We get all these guests, and then Dan reads you and tell you things. Go on, Dan, I know it's coming. I know you picked up the lady because you mentioned it straight away. And I saw your eyes light up like a Christmas tree. Lady's with you now, I can tell you that. Even I know that. Go on, Dan.
Have you got a close friend recently?
What was that? Sorry.
Have you got a close friend recently?
I can't hear you. You keep cutting out.
So have you got
Have
a
you
close
got
friend? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, have you got a close friend who recently died?
Yeah, it was his anniversary recently. In February, we worked together when we were kids on pirate radio stations and stuff like that. And he was killed, and it was his anniversary recently.
So you picked him up that time?
Yeah.
That's weird.
That,
What else have you got? Not a lot. But while you're thinking, Mike, big question. Obviously, Mike, we ask everybody, or I ask everybody, because I'm intrigued as an investigator, and I love my history now. If you could investigate anywhere in the world, where and why?
Ooh, interesting. I don't know. A lot of the places that I've always wanted to, I've been given access to. I've been quite blessed. That I've been given the opportunity to. Maybe one of the big palaces, Glams in Scotland. There's a legend of the secret room.
Yep.
According to the story, someone went years ago and put tissues out of every room to try and work out where the secret room was. And I'd love to do that, but with today's technology, with ground penetrating radar and all that, but it's royal palace in it, so it's not going to happen. But I'd love to do something like that. I'd love to be able to find that secret room and put that legend to bed, sort of thing.
That's really interesting because you're the first person from the UK that's actually said they'd rather do something in the UK. Mine, for me, everybody knows, Suicide Forest.
Oh yeah, I bet that's
it's
interesting.
The closest you will come to death as a living person. I wouldn't investigate there. For me, it's the experience to walk through and feel it. But I'm getting goosebumps now thinking about it. For me, I think it's got to be the place. I mean, we've got Irene Akiko, bless her. She lives right next door to it. And we have invites me. She's invited about 8 of us to go to Japan and go and investigate with her. She's a medium over there. So that's one thing I'd like to do, but that's interesting, the palace. I know you can go, the English Heritage?
Yeah.
Go through them, because we're members. They've got some of the palaces you can actually go in.
Yeah.
And have a look through that way. I mean, that's the only way you could do it, really, isn't it? But then you're going back to pencil and paper, aren't you, really?
Yeah.
But then I think that's the best way. I mean, I've got lots of technology. I use robots now. People look at me in a strange way, but I feel that if you're in the middle and you've got loads of robots, motion detected robots, if one goes off, explain it to me.
I always say the best paranormal investigation is one that doesn't involve a human. You fill a room with equipment and lock that room off and go sit somewhere else and monitor it. If stuff happens in that room, how can you account for it? But it's when you put humans in there, because I have a great distrust of people. I've been to places where I've seen people, I've caught them on camera. They've said, if there's anyone there, give us a sign. I've caught them on camera banging on the wall and kicking the floor.
Throwing stones.
Throwing, most places have candles. I've caught people getting the wax from the candles and throwing it and stuff like that. And it's just like, why would you do that? Because you're ruining it for yourself, but for everybody else as well.
But as well as I do, our field over here is so messed up. When I talk to people, tomorrow I've got an interview with an American tribal paranormal team, which in America, on their podcast, and they asked me a lot over there, what's it like in the UK as a paranormal investigator? It's harder than being in the armed forces. There's just, as well as I do, unless you keep your head down, you're basically fucked in this field. People will just try and destroy you. Like I say to many, it takes a long time to build a good reputation. It's taken me 8 years, but it could take a second to lose it all.
Yeah.
And that's how it works here. It's really bad. The bullying side of things, all these power unities, and I know there's another one just come up. We've got PowerX. You know, there's so much. It's ridiculous. I've got to stop doing that. I'm giving so much.
I'm seeing someone in military theatre. Mike.
Military.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I know the street was hit quite badly during the Second World War. We lost a lot of properties in the street.
I'm
But
also seeing. Have you had a relative? I want to say female. It's just this word repeating like dementia.
what was the word?
Dementia.
No, a close neighbour's got it at the minute. I call her my auntie. She's not my auntie. She's like a term of endearment. But she's lived on the street for many years.
That's mental. You picked that up, man.
Yeah, it's just yeah.
Oh, what else you picking up? Mike, did they actually get rid of the killer then? Did they actually help him move on, or is he still about?
Yeah. It was a guy called Father Phil Lamb from the Diocese of York, and Father Phil came and performed a ceremony and moved him on. But I'm often told, because I do a lot of work with a lot of the books I write are about true crime victims and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm often told that they come in visitation to sort of say thank you for remembering me and things like that.
Well, people don't understand. The dead have a story to tell, don't they?
Yeah.
And people don't get it. It's like
I was gonna say that lady of you lighting those candles.
it's a freaking bomber. Freaking bombs just gone over the house.
Yeah, that lady's thankful. Candles.
Yeah, because you might basically remember that. It's nice, you know. That's a respectful thing to light the candle as well. That's, you know, for her, that's amazing for her. Actually, think about how she feels. This was my house. Although you know they've moved in now.
I'll send you one of the clips. I'll send because I've got a. I don't know if I can turn the camera around on this. I don't know if it. I've got it on my screen, and it says "Hull woman dead with head injuries, blood-stained axe near body." I'll inbox you it so you can have a look. It's got my address. But yeah, it was just a fascinating case, and like I say, we do.
Asked to work in cold cases.
I have done stuff with the police before. I years and years ago, I published a book about the Silver Hatchet Gang, which were a little bit like Peaky Blinders, and they were based in Hull. And I got a call from a top detective at Humberside Police who asked for a meeting. And I met with him thinking I'd maybe uncovered something I shouldn't.
Yeah.
During the meeting, he turned around to me and he said, one of the guys that you mentioned in the report is my great-great-grandfather. And that was amazing. So I started chatting to him, and it got me in to talk to a couple of the officers and things like that. And at that time, I was working on a book about a guy called Edwin Brough. And Edwin Brough lived at Scarborough. He had bloodhounds, and his bloodhounds were taken to Whitechapel in 1888 to look for Jack the Ripper. And I wanted a modern policing perspective on canine units. So I just asked him, I said, would you mind helping out? And one of the guys, a guy called Sergeant Martin Hopper, he wrote a chapter about police dogs. And it was wonderful, and it was so nice to be able to work with him and stuff like that. And then on a few occasions, I've bumped into police officers and they've said, "Oh, we've got your books. We've bought some of your books and things like that." And I get a lot of the ghost stories, a lot of UFO stories, get sent to me from serving police officers. Who will send me information on cases and stuff like that. So I have had a few dabblings over the years. I think when this next series of books comes out, which is all the true crime stuff, I think that'll possibly open up a few avenues as well.
That's interesting. So obviously, I'm reading what you sent me. Dan, this is quite good actually. What you just sent me, this newspaper clipping, it's really good. The dead, the woman that was murdered, had a daughter.
Yeah, she was based in London.
She's a nurse.
As far as I know, a daughter came to Hull for her mum's funeral, and then went back to London, and nothing's been heard of her since.
That's interesting, isn't it?
But it's great because, like, when you think of like the venue we discussed before we went on air, when they make up these claims and they can't be verified, and then you've got stuff like this. I mean, the documentation that I've got for this property, literally, I've got about 30 newspaper reports covering the disappearance of the husband and subsequent discovery, and then Mrs. Garbutt's murder and subsequent investigation and inquest and aftermath and all that. So I've been able to build a big picture up of all of the events that happen in this property. And the amount of people that have contacted me and said, "Can we come and do an event in your house?" Well, no, because it's a house. This is where I live. This is my home. But often when the kids go away for the weekend, I'll set up my my EMF detector, my spirit box, and see what happens. And I've had a few interesting nights in here, a few interesting hits.
That article interests me about the daughter. There's just something there about that. That doesn't seem right. Because, like you explained, and it says here as well, they killed the husband first, then he killed the wife. I'm just wondering whether it was all to do with the daughter.
Possibly, yeah.
Because she disappeared, like you said. Daniel, I'm sending this to you now. Have a look at this.
The lady just said yes.
What?
Just said yes.
The lady that's at the house, at Mike's house, said yes. It's to do with her daughter. Mike, you ever tried investigating but using anything to do with the daughter at all? Like on your spirit box?
A few little bits of information on the daughter. Not a great deal. She was.
No, what I mean is, have you actually brought her up in the spirit box?
No, I've not actually.
I reckon that might be an idea, mate. I've got a strong feeling. I hate to say this. I reckon the daughter had the fucking parents knocked off.
Reckon.
Yeah, I do actually. Looking at this, were they wealthy? Do you know?
Not that I know of. There's no
Why would you
or anything like that at the time.
See, I don't get it because she was a nurse in London. She doesn't have. There's nothing there to say that she needed anything money-wise, because being a nurse back then in London as well, she already had high authority. So what would have done it? Debts?
Yeah,
Come
possibly.
on, Dan, I need your help here. What's the lady say?
To do with debts, yeah?
Yeah.
Saying yes.
She thinks it's to do with debts? What, from a daughter? Back then they would have killed you. When was the axe gang around?
Oh, the Silver Hatchet Gang. They were ruled out by the First World War. Basically, early 1900s, they killed a man.
Yeah.
And the city pulled together at that time to get rid of the Silver Hatchet Gang. So by the First World War, they'd all gone. Many of them were in prison. Many of them were sent off to fight. And you never really heard from them again after that.
Is it possible it could be a copycat? See, the daughter thing just doesn't, it's not adding up for me. There's just something wrong with her. The fact that she went to the funeral, her mum's funeral, and the fact that she was in London as well, obviously, no, there's just something not right with it. And the way they were executed as well. Was it? Yeah, it was her, wasn't it? That was axed 6 times in the head. I'm not being funny, but that's brutal.
Oh yeah, that's overkill.
That's a proper hit. What the hell? That's an execution. That's not a kill. That's an execution, which suggests that whoever's done this guy's done, it's not his first kill. Have you got the thing there that I sent you? Have a look and see what you think of that. Just read what it says. Because for me, there's just something not right in that. See, this is it, right? They've got a guy, but he left the accent. So I think personally they were paid to do this. Because that's an experience, that is. Why would you leave an act? That's evidence. That shows an experience. Even at time day, what have you got down? I know you've got something now. Go on.
Whoa. I've literally got goosebumps all over my ears. I'm just reading that.
That's what I mean. There's something not right, is there? It's the last 5 lines that I.
To the daughter.
Yeah. I get the impression she had her parents off, but the question is why. That it's not money. It's not the house. Who did she deal with debts back then for them to come looking for her parents? Why wouldn't they do her rather than parents if it's debts?
No idea. And it's hard because there's not, obviously because of what happened in Hull during the war, there's not a lot of records left.
That's really bad. Have you asked the detective for case files?
There is none. Oh, sorry, there is. They're at the National Archives, and I believe they're covered up until 2045 under the 100-year rule.
Yep.
I wrote to the National Archives to see if I could access them, and they said because I'm not a member of the family, I'm not allowed to see them. So, which is strange because we have local cases here that are younger than this, where you can get access to the stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Is it where your PC friends, the detective?
I've asked, but because they're at the National Archives, they don't have any jurisdiction over them. You see, locally, most cases went to the East Riding Archives, which is in Beverley, which is a short distance away. They have all the police stuff. When I wrote the book on Mary Jane Langley, I went there and had a look at the files and stuff like that that they had. But yeah, there's nothing on this. And I was able to get, as well, Hull had a serial killer called William Bearkit. He killed 3 women. And I was able to get access to his files. The National Archives rang me up and said we can copy them all for you and it'll cost you £1,000. But I got in touch with a mate of mine who lives locally and she went with a camera and took pictures of them and it just cost me a couple of quid. So
that's really weird. Wow. See, that's racked my brains now because now you've got suspicion. Because if you're accessing serial killer records and you can't access a record for this, a murder, from years ago. There's something not right there.
It's a really weird.
That's
I'll
a really
double
weird case. That's a weird case. I'd love to get a medium friend on that. I might contact my friend in Australia and see what she's got to say about that, because there's something not right there.
By all means, send them the article and see what they say.
I'm gonna. I think that for me, there's something not right there. And when you just said then that they won't let you see because of family members, there ain't no bloody family, they're all dead. That's man. That's done my head. Anyway, Mike, we're over the hour late, so we're gonna go, guys. Thanks, Mike, for coming on. I do want to get you back, mate. I could talk to you for hours. Really,
well, when you go through your 70, give me a shout.
I will, mate. This article thing, Dan.
Yeah,
I think we're gonna have to call a few favours.
agreed.
We need to speak to a few mediums about this.
Yeah, if you can find anything out, give me a shout. Because, like I say, I'm baffled by what's going on at the archives and why they won't let me see it. But yeah,
I wonder if it's worth asking Irene. Take care.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Mickey.
Definitely
In
Mickey.
Scarborough, and I'm thinking my friend in Australia, and I'm thinking one of my friends in America.
Yeah, by all.
Yeah.
I actually have a folder on my Facebook page. If you go on my Facebook page and look through my albums, there's a folder called The Real Lodger, and it's got all the photographs of all the newspaper clippings. It's got the death records of Mrs. Garbutt, and I tell the story as well through each picture and things like that. So they're all on there.
You got nothing like crime scene photos or anything like that? Or
No, nothing like that.
you got a picture of the house on there? You know, like where they draw sketches of the house and they put marks.
When I was researching it, I basically drew a sketch myself of where everything is and where everything happened.
Have you got it on your page?
1 second, I'll send it to you.
I really am curious. You can't access the file one. The hatchet was left too. The fact that she was killed, overkill. The daughter, there's something there. And this article is just bothering me. It's the last 5 words, lines.
You hear her crying something?
No, I've not. Nothing like that.
Wow. She didn't make it to the front door, did she?
No.
She was murdered in plain sight.
Yeah. Right in the front window.
She was murdered in plain sight then. Right, where's that? And then he tried to cover it up. Let me show you this, Dan. So what do you think of this? This says it all. That. Right. I've got to send this to my friend in Australia. She'll have a field day. She'll come back, hopefully, and she'll tell me exactly how she was killed.
Good.
And she'll describe the actual murder to me. I'll get it. Hopefully, she'll send me in message form.
No problem. Just give me a shout. Anything out, let me know.
I will, because this is mental. Dan, have a look at this setup. This is what Mike's done. Right, so obviously you've seen the picture of the room. Now look at what's there. She was murdered in plain sight. So I think whoever's done this, or they've got whatever, this isn't the first time you can see that thing. She didn't make it to the front door. What did this? Do you know if there was anything to say whether there was forced entry?
No, we lived in the house with her. He was her lodger. So he was in the house. In fact, we've got going back to the 1920s of him being a lodger here. In the 1939 register, he's here with the daughter as well. So there's Mrs. Garbett, and there's Louisa Garbett, and then there's Fred Watson.
This changes everything now. Forget the money and the death thing. She left to go to London and be a nurse. He offed the parents. I wonder whether there was something to do with the fact that he fell in love with the daughter.
Possibility.
And he offed the parents because he couldn't deal with it to try and bring back. Because I'm not being funny, Dan. When you look at this sketch, she was murdered in plain sight, clear as day, in front of a big bloody bay window. She was then dragged to the back room, which shows that he was. Well, how can I put it? He was trying to. Can you hear that? That's breathing. That's someone's breathing. That's a heartbeat, Dan. Well, there you go. Messed up. But anyway, I'm going to let Mike go, and we will catch up with Mike. Obviously, now I've got more to look into with another thing. I love it because you come on with a guest, and the guest goes, "I've got this happening," and you go, "Oh, this is interesting." But this is really grabbed my attention. No, that really has got my attention. Somebody else speak apart from me. Right, so anyway, guys.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on.
No worries, Mike. I will catch up with you, mate. Hopefully we'll get something on this because, yeah, I'm well interested.
Brilliant.
And make sure you go to Starling, bro.
Yeah, I will. And next time you're in, I'll give us a shout. I'll take it to insights.
Oh, defo. Yeah, Dan, right? We'll give you a heads up. Dan, we'll go home.
Yeah.
Damn right. Yeah, we'll sort a day out and come up and meet you.
Yeah, no worries.
Right, mate. Thank you very much for being on. Guys, tomorrow I'm being interviewed, and then we are interviewing Janine Hayes. So, from us, guys, it's goodbye. Thank you again, Mike, and we will see you shortly.